Okay, hello everybody. We're here at AAMI neXus, day 2 of AAMI neXus 2026. And I'm here with a face that I'm sure a lot of our viewers will recognize. This is Sandy Weininger. And Sandy, I think a lot of folks will think of you as Sandy from FDA. So who are you now?
So Sandy was from FDA. After 36 plus years, I decided to retire at the end of last year.
Mhm.
So now I'm Sandy, independent safety engineer, consultant, whatever you want to call me. But I'm still the co-chair, for example, of the IEC Joint Working Group on Oximetry. I'm still the co-chair of the AAMI Interoperability Work Group, and I still play a role in IEC 4th edition, in PEMS, PCLC, remote control,
Yeah.
interoperability. So still very busy, just don't have to go to Silver Spring every day and don't have to do product reviews or program charters or the other bureaucratic timesheet type things, which I'm thrilled about.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
But still get to engage with folks like Julian Goldman at the MDPNP program in terms of interoperability safety
Yeah.
and things of that nature.
No, I think you represent the kind of folks that we love to see in the standards worlds where the passion is there so much. You have this area of expertise and you cannot leave it. You know, you're going to be sticking with it as long as you can, I'm
Well,
assuming.
I always assume, I'm ultimately I serve public health,
Yeah.
right? It's a service role that I believe in.
Yeah.
And so this, what could be more important than helping all folks consider what it means to deliver or develop safe software, or how do we get interoperability in a safe manner, out there to modernize medical device development.
For sure. And I know we're mentioning interoperability a lot. It's your area of focus. It's also quite a buzzword. There's multiple conferences that will have focus areas on it. Nexus, of course, being one of them. You had a session earlier today that focused on interoperability, but not interoperability necessarily within the immediate healthcare system. We're talking about home healthcare as a healthcare hub. What does that mean?
So home is a healthcare hub. If we wind the clock back a few years, uh, you know, we use the term interoperability to try to get people to talk about it, getting devices to talk to each other, right? We've
Mhm.
got this little
Yeah.
thing in our pocket that we can integrate a whole bunch of different sensors and actuators. We can't do that in medical. And so, but now, 20 years later, after we've been talking about it enough, it's now time to start to talk about what are the applications of interoperability. And so this was a specialization. This was home as a healthcare hub. What benefits will interoperability bring to that particular space? So for example, I'll be able to introduce a new app into this hub
Mhm.
and not screw up the other apps in the hub and not cause the devices that are connected to the hub to stop working or work in a different way.
Right, right.
And vice versa, I can bring a new device into this environment and not screw up the apps that are already there. And so why do I want to do this? It's because I don't want the system to be obsolete the moment I deliver it into the home.
Of course. And I mean, we see this already very common in the, I guess, the consumer world, right? Consumer
Absolutely.
electronics, compatible with this, not compatible with this, not backwards compatible, but it will be with this, that kind of thing. Um, is that the same kind of labeling that we're now seeing with medical devices or apps, or is this even software as a medical device? Are we
Well,
talking
the
about
reason we're seeing it is because we don't see it yet in the marketplace.
passive? Okay.
Consumer technologies are multi-billion-dollar industries,
Mhm.
and the medical device industry as a whole, the device industry fits inside of Exxon, right? So there isn't that. If there are any philanthropists out there that would like to, we figure $100 million, plunk it up on the table, and we can architect an interoperability solution
Yeah.
for the home, like for aging in place. We're all aging, and I would like this to be built sooner than later so that when I finally age and need something to detect falls, to do my daily vital signs, to make sure I'm taking the right pills, I mean, we can't do any of that now. It's all very kludgy.
And we want it on all one network. Is that a cybersecurity concern as well? If they're more interoperable with one another, we know then that they're all part of the same.
Well, if we listen to what our AI folks are telling us, everything is a cybersecurity threat and
Yes.
everything is vulnerable. So cybersecurity is always a vulnerability and should always be taken into account. Um, but we have tried to partition it to say, yes, it's important, but the focus of the work and the research that we do is more on the behavior of the system
Okay.
and trying to get the players to play with each other and to understand what the roles of all the different devices are, what the roles of the people are, what are the workflows, and to do a systems engineering perspective on how to get them to function together.
Sure. I remember my early years at AAMI. I first became familiar with your work and the work of Dr. Julian Goldman. It was in the middle of COVID, and we were talking about interoperability of remote monitoring systems for hospital spaces because you didn't want to have people constantly donning and doffing PPE, getting in the emergency rooms. It was excellent work, and one of the things that was mentioned early on was there's a translation here to a more mobile setup, and it made me think of home healthcare.
So we took that work, that foundational work,
Mhm.
and we now have an AAMI draft standard on remote control of medical devices. Right? And it looks at the different behavioral aspects and the principles that should take place or should be upheld when you're doing remote control. Because if you want physiologic closed loop control, there's only two actuators, right? There's a ventilator and an infusion pump. They're both pumps. One pumps fluid, one pumps air. And then there's a whole bunch of sensors. And again, the reason we want an interoperability platform is because I don't want to have to build the sensors. They're already out there. I don't want to have to build the pumps. I want to be able to, I'm old, a CD, or an app and download it from the App Store and have it integrate the existing infrastructure, right? I want to democratize the development of medical devices and reduce the time that it takes to develop it, reduce the costs, by orders of magnitude.
Yeah. And this isn't just patient information then, this is the sharing of, I guess, live diagnostics and other.
So that, you look at a typical medical device, there's the obvious stuff that comes out the back.
Yeah.
There's the obvious stuff that the operator puts in the front, and then there's the guts on the inside, which is the state of the machine and some other things, which are a little harder to get at.
Sure.
But that's the kind of stuff that we want to standardize and expose so that somebody who's using me, if I'm a pulse oximeter and you want to use my information, it would be nice if you knew what my filter settings were and a few other things, so you can use me safely.
Without getting false reads or anything else. No,
That's
that
right.
makes sense.
Well, and the classic example on pulse oximeters, if I have a blood pressure cuff upstream and I pump it up, your oximeter is not going to work because you've just cut off all the blood flow.
Restricted,
right?
Absolutely.
And if you're just looking at the context of the oximeter, it doesn't know there's a cuff upstream. Right? And so how do you incorporate context into your platform?
That's interesting.
It's a challenging problem.
Yeah.
But with AI is going to solve everything. And so you'll have the camera up there, and it will, digitize your world and say, oh, you're looking at blood pressure. Or you can look to see whether there's blood pressure being pumped up at the same time. Blood pressure cuff can issue a notification that it's pumping up. And so the pulse oximeter would say, oh, I see that there's a blood pressure cuff pumping up. Maybe these readings, which are so erroneous, are a result of that.
Yeah.
And maybe someone's actually told me that I put it on the same arm as your cuff.
So that's interesting. We're mentioning AI as one possible solution, and I'm sure there's some people looking into that. I'm curious, though, the challenges that you're looking to address, even at this conference or discuss at this conference. Do you have any highlights of those that you want to share with our viewers?
Or lowlights. We've been talking about this for 20 years, but we're still at the point where, can you please just make your data available, right? And after you make your data available, can we please talk about maybe some standardization of that data? So what we try to push in ISO TC 121, anesthesia and respiratory equipment, is that each of the particular standards, right, particular standards under 601, we've put in an annex, and it says, my device shall communicate the following bits of information.
In the same way.
Right? So so with the ISO standards are about what to do, not how to do it. Right? We have an 11073 stuff, which starts to get at the how to, right? And that's what and again, the other things that AAMI's been working on is, what does that landscape, that patchwork of standards out there look like? It's not particularly obvious, particularly to small companies, that they should say, well, I need a standard that talks about what to communicate. I need a standard that talks about how to communicate. I need a standard that talks about what it means to be safe, right? So there's all different aspects of that.
Well, I know with these standards groups, we've got people participating, they're at the table, they're having these discussions with you and your colleagues. And, we have regulatory representation, we have I'm assuming medical device manufacturer representation. Are the clinicians in the room as well?
Well, Dr. Goldman is typically the
He
clinician
is
in the
the
room.
clinician, yeah.
Occasionally, not occasionally, we can try to get other clinicians, and we're sometimes successful. One of the things that we've been trying to do in the Oximetry committee is have the standards meetings meet in conjunction with some of the clinical meetings,
Seems
right?
smart,
So
yeah.
Society for Technology and Anesthesia meets in January. So let's have a pulse oximeter standards meeting right after it.
Yeah.
And some of the people will stick around, particularly if we ask them nicely,
That's
right?
great.
And so we get a lot of input.
No, that's fantastic. So then what are we going to see as success for these efforts? Is there anything that we immediately want to be looking forward moving?
Oh my.
It's always the hard question for standards. How do you measure success?
Well, I think we can measure success by uptake of the standard
Mhm.
to see who conforms to it. We can see who complains about it as well.
That's
That's
fair.
always interesting. Manufacturers always, and I feel for the manufacturer because, particularly if again, I'm a pulse ox person, so I can speak directly to that. We've really upped the requirements for clinical evaluation in light of the pigmentation differences that
That was a
have
big
been
controversy.
detected, and it's a real challenge because it's not 100% sure that it is pigmentation because some of the really well-designed devices don't have a lot of bias.
Mm,
Some of the poorly designed devices do have a lot of bias. So that seems to indicate it's not necessarily pigmentation. But so what information should those devices communicate? And so if we can see that they're spitting out the right kinds of stuff, then I think that will be an indication of success, right? And then the second layer on that is if we start to see things like PCLC, physiologic closed loop control, and if that can be standards based,
mhm.
and you can use the outputs from these other devices without having to re-engineer the whole world, right? So that's part two, and I'll give you a part three while I have Tim. Sue was handing out magic wands yesterday. I don't know,
Yes,
right?
and
So I
pixie dust
grabbed
and
one.
magic wands.
So the other magic wand is, let's say, for example, I want a remotely controllable infusion pump,
Sure.
right? Because there are none available in the U.S. today. And if I want to do any kind of PCLC or any kind of, chemotherapy in the home healthcare environment, I need that. That is the foundational device,
Yeah.
and we don't have it. And
That
so
circles
our
back to that
healthcare
initial
is
work we were
is
talking
being
about.
degraded because we can't get there yet.
Mhm.
So we could talk about, and we do talk about, what should that pump do? And how should that pump communicate? And what should a test setup look like such that I can develop the evidence necessary to satisfy my former regulatory colleagues, right? And of course, the challenge is to bring the regulatory colleagues in so that before you go and build all this stuff, you get some agreement,
Yeah.
right? So you're not going to go build something and it's like, we don't really like what you did, right? So there's a MDTT, medical device development tool, that Dr. Goldman is putting together to try to assess the controllability aspects of these kinds of pumps, right? And it's under a collaborative community, right? Collaborative communities with FDA,
Yeah,
so that we
fantastic.
can have all parties speaking on an even level,
Mhm.
pre-competitive, and see if we can get some consensus.
Oh, that's great. I'm looking forward to hearing more about that. I know you've been having a good and productive conference so far, so I wish you best of luck for the rest of the conference. I hope you enjoy it. Is there anything you want to leave any parting message for our community directly?
Live long and prosper. You can edit that out.
No, that's good.
uh, I think what we said in the conference, in the session this morning, is standards can do a lot. Standards have traditionally been very structured on what has happened. I think the new era of standards is also going to be what can happen. And you should aim to get involved and get your vision expressed and support these standards so that we can put a roadmap in place so that we can all have better healthcare and cheaper healthcare and more effective healthcare.
Yeah. I think something we say a lot is if you're not at the table, you don't know what's for dinner. So get
That's
on
right.
at the table.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Sandy, thank you again for dropping by.
My pleasure.
Enjoy rest of Nexus.
All right. And
Okay.
bring your billions of dollars because we need it. Can edit that out too.